So this was intense. Last year at Inbox Awesome, we had a newsletter panel about newsletter soloists, basically the bedroom producers of newsletters. And we had one person on that panel who was on a journey from being an artist to an entrepreneur, a very, very successful journey. And this person is here today because her journey has continued. And she spent the last year changing coasts, diving into the Silicon Valley. And I'm very excited to announce Stephanie Diamond on stage. Stephanie.
Hi, thank you. I'm so happy to be back in this capacity, rather than being on a panel, but telling you my story. I'm going to rearrange a little bit. So this slide is small. Can you see it? Should I even talk about it? I'm going to show you some slides. I'm going to tell you my journey continued. It's interesting you say I switched coast. I miss this coast. I'm a New Yorker. That's part of why this all began. So this slide represents all of me rather than just being this tech person. It's a fake Google composite search of me. So it has a little bit of Google images of being a wife, being a mother, being spiritual, being a friend, being a painter, a dancer. And this is the next one of me right now. I'm so fascinated by these images of people speaking. A lot of times when we have our Facebook profile picture, we really put on the speaker picture and we look disgusting. Like, yeah, I totally welcome pictures of me looking. But it's so interesting. So I'm like inspiring you right now, and I'm like really moving around. But I'm really interested in all of us, and that's really how Listings Project began. So who's on Listings Project? Anyone in here? Do you know? Cool. So it's very simple. Listings Project is a free weekly email of work and living space for creative people and beyond, and it's curated. And I'll explain more of that as we go through, and it will, for the most part, always remain an email. So as an artist, I began as a photographer, and I just constantly took photographs. And I was often very alone when I was taking the photographs, and the pictures were often very lonely. And I found that over the years, really I didn't care about taking pictures. I was more interested in holding a photograph and talking to somebody about it. So it was really the action of being in community. This was before digital cameras, and this is also a small slide. Don't know if you can see it, but I ended up amassing a huge archive of over 100,000 print photographs. This is a picture of one version of it, so everything you see here is a photograph. And this was kind of the beginning of me being a lister, being anally organized. Then I stopped being really interested in photography. Facebook came out, and what people put on Facebook is basically what I was photographing. I call myself like the original Facebook. Also, while this was all happening, I had many day jobs. So I was an arts administrator, as professor, which relates back to Listings Project, which has become my day job. And Listings Project is also an art project for me. My projects started to get larger and more interesting. So this is an image of working with a group of middle schoolers in Philly to make time capsules for their grandchildren. So these were 12-year-olds thinking about their grandkids, and we buried them on the Temple University campus. They'll be unearthed in 50 years. I worked with a child psychiatrist, which is someone who gives meds, I always differentiate, to make an alternative viewing piece for the Museum of Modern Art. So these people are looking through these devices while they look through the MoMA. I also had a big sleepover at the Queen's Museum with a bunch of artists. It was kind of like a conference. The museum was closed, and we slept over for 2 nights. So my projects, like I said, they began with photographs, and then really were just about being with people and being in community. So this is the homepage of Listings Project. Listings Project began 12 years ago. I don't know if that's really common in the tech world. I'm just recently admitting that I run a tech business. It was free for 8 years. So 12 years ago, I was in grad school and I desperately needed a place to live. So automatically I emailed my friends, do you know of anything? And people emailed me. And because of the nature of my work, which you just saw, I was already really connected to community and cared about them. So as the listings came in, I would compile them on my Yahoo account on Microsoft Word and cut and paste them in and email them out. And then people started to become really aware that I was doing that, so they intentionally sent me listings to forward. And that was the big switch. So I would just cut and paste their email and send it through, and one of the emails said, Stephanie, you have such a great list, will you forward this? And I didn't even think I had a great list, but I forwarded it with that message, and I think that kind of gave the indicator something was happening. So again, 12 years ago, Yahoo started thinking I was a spammer, and I then got a newsletter hosting service. I think I did your mailing list provider at first. Does anyone know who they are? Are they still even around? Then I went to Constant Contact, and now I'm with Campaign Monitor. And the list has grown. There are 150,000 people across the world and across the United States using it. For some people, this might sound really small, but Listings Project is completely word of mouth, and we're not on social media. It's literally spoken about through email or through voice. And it remains to be curated. So every single time something comes through, it is so completely vetted. Dana, are you here? Hi. Dana is my community manager, so she reads everything, and often we email back and forth like 10 or 15 times between a lister. Is this a real house? Is this really available? You spelled this wrong. Can we correct your spelling? Really, really intimate. We don't allow any brokers in New York City, no managers, so no listings with fees. So if you're looking, this is the spot. There's someone else I want to add about that. I can't remember. This is a note from one of the listers. We get listings all the time with notes. I sincerely respect your community as a place where we can talk about our needs honestly and value the voices of each other and the connections between people. I feel that only then can we find trust, quality, and harmony in our daily lives. These messages come in constantly, and I think about what Listings Project is. Yes, it's an email, but it's helping people find homes, and we're really interested in that safety and that community and that calmness of finding a home, which is one of the most stressful times in the world. So that's also part of the reason why we're staying on email, because of the intimacy of email and the connection that we have, that we choose for an email to come in. I don't know any other way online that we can communicate that way. I call it like the love letter of the internet. This is what it looks like. Again, small slide. On the left is before, and on the right is after. We just redid our email. When I was here a year ago, I was talking about the need for a CTO. I had just learned what that term meant. A year ago, I was just realizing, I run a tech company, and I think I was saying, like, help me. Well, somebody did, and my CTO is here, Scott, who's amazing. And I feel like we all run this together. I wouldn't be able to do this without my team and also the listers. So I feel completely connected as my community with my community. This is another message. I found an apartment, not through your list, not through the list, but I did see many great spaces. Your list did reconnect me with a lost friend, though. She saw my ad when she was looking for a roommate, and we are now reunited. Thank you for that. So that is also really common on Listings Project, which is really, really important to me. The connection that is beyond space, so we're connecting people and places, not just places. What's also really interesting to me about Listings Project, I'm going to look at my notes so I don't leave anything off. When I talk about having had many day jobs as an artist, Listings Project has become my day job, which is really great, but also it provides other creative people to be their day job. And we've really built it up to be a conscious company with like unlimited days off and all those like catchphrases, but really we're working remotely. I have a family, Scott has a family, Dana is an actress, Mael is an artist, there's 4 of us. And it's really enabled us to have a really whole life. And so it's, again, not just this email, but it's really helping us live and be the community that we want to be. Let's make sure I'm not leaving anything off. So when I did realize that Listings Project was a business, I ended up going around and meeting desperately with every single type of tech person I could possibly imagine. I feel like I got my MBA in a year just through having meetings. I do not have an MBA, and it's not the same, but for me, it's an MBA as an artist. And it was really fascinating to me to meet with people who were totally business, whether they were tech or not, and hear how creative they were. And sometimes they would have ideas that were ridiculous for Listings Project, but would make me $1 million. But I would never do it because it completely strays from the intentions and the vision of the company. But it was so cool to hear business people think so creatively, because as an artist, I was always really snobby about, I'm not business. But I feel like we have a lot to learn from each other. And as an artist, I often used to think, I'm poor, I'm supposed to be a poor, starving artist. And Listings Project was free for 8 years because it wasn't so big at first, and then I was just too afraid to ask for money, and I eventually needed to ask for money because I was working on it so much, and I got laid off from my professor job. And I worked really hard with somebody to write a note to my listers saying, I'm charging, is it okay? Like almost whispering it. And then I got all these notes of people saying like, yes, we wanted to give you money, you deserve this. And it was a big wake-up call for me as an artist to realize, I can make money, people will still like me, and it's okay, artists are not nonprofits. So when I go and talk to art schools, I often talk to the students like, it's okay to make money, we don't have to be starving. Let's see some more notes. How much time do I have? Because I want to do questions. Okay. Of course, if you have questions, you could talk to me about them right now. Say, you have a question? Oh, yeah, I want to talk about my move. Thank you. So I, yeah. So I'm a native New Yorker. My dad's a landlord. My mom's an artist. So like this project is very much like a tribute to them in many ways. And I also know a lot of the ins and outs of what's happening in New York real estate because of having grown up in it. But I also am a mom to a very young daughter, and growing up in New York when I was, in the 70s, in the 80s was really different than now. So I decided, let's go to like a backyard spot and get a beautiful house, and why don't we go to Silicon Valley? Maybe Listings Project can benefit from that. So we moved a year ago. I live in Berkeley. But that's still Silicon Valley, even though Berkeley is a really weird bubble. And it's really different. I actually miss New York. It's really different. Anyone from living there right now, Silicon Valley? So I can okay. I'm curious. I want to talk to you about it. But I miss New York. But it's really beautiful to know that what we're doing is happening there and here and everywhere, so I never feel alone. And it's really interesting to have a remote company. So Scott lives in Michigan, Dana lives in New York, Myla lives in Berkeley, so do I. And I have a bunch of consultants that are all over the country. So I've lived in both of the polar opposites, and I really love swimming in the whole country to make things happen. We use Basecamp a lot to communicate, and we use LastPass, I would say. That's basically it. Here's the website and my email. You can always email me and talk to me. That's really what this is about. We'll help you find a space, but we'll help you find a space in a really beautiful, intimate way. Email. Any questions? You want me to pass my mic? Okay, well, you can project. You did.
There's so many examples of even popular people who essentially they start to charge and they discover that most of the people in their community don't want to pay for it. That's a great question. So how do I decide what to charge? So again, free for 8 years. So by the time I started charging, I already had a ton of people involved. This has been going on for 12 years, which I don't know if is very common in the startup world. I'm dedicated. This thing is not going away unless the listers stop using it. I don't make any decisions without my listers. I run focus groups and I run surveys all the time. Not all the time, but frequently. So what the listers want, I do. So I started charging after 8 years, and it was sliding scale. People could choose whatever they wanted to pay. I think it was 10, 15, 20, and 25.
Dollars, yeah. and it's interesting when you give sliding scale, people I think are like, oh, I don't want to look cheap, then I don't want to spend too much. So I got mostly the middle ground. Then I started having to pay more money to make listings project work, like paying for constant contact at the time or hiring people, guns for hire. And so I had to charge more. So I wiped it all out with sliding scale and I charged 20. And that was for a really long time, and everyone was fine with that. I actually kept getting more listers the more and more I started charging. And then when I needed to hire my CTO and I had to hire Scott, I switched it to $30. And prepared to lose listers, I just got more listers. When Scott came on, finally we have a way to make technology happen and work with it. So we now have tiered pricing. So if you post after the deadline, you can get on, you just have to pay more. And that is, I can't remember the time period, but it's $30 like all week. And then there's a $60 window, a $90 window, and a $180 window. And the $180 window is like if you desperately need it, but hopefully you don't do it because it's a lot more work on us. But people post for $180, which is fascinating to me. But if you look at like Zillow and other equivalents, people are paying more. So we watch who else, other competitors or people that we are in our field with us. Any more questions?
Who do you see as your competitors? You just mentioned Zillow. Who else?
For artists, I don't know any competitors that are having listings for artists to find space and housing. In terms of roommates, I guess Craigslist. I don't see him as a competitor. It's just a really cool, amazing, existing being that has enabled, I think, a lot of us to do what we're doing. We have apartments for sublet, so that would be Airbnb. So yeah, they're similar, but I don't know. There's no one totally doing what we're doing.
Facebook.
Oh yeah, Facebook. Facebook is our most popular. It's funny that we're not on Facebook, but most people talk about Listings Project on Facebook, and then they make these like housing groups on Facebook, like Gypsy Housing. Anyone on Gypsy Housing? That's one of my competitors.
You might have said this before, but do you do listings for studios as well as apartments, or is it only housing?
It's every single type of architecture, of living space ever architecture. So it's workspace, so it's sublets and spaces to share and just workspace. And then it's roommates and it's swaps and it's apartments for rent, apartments for sublet, pet sitting, house sitting, co-working. Every type of space that you need is on there. And all those categories have been added because the listers have asked for it. The latest one is, and we're about to add it, so this is inside tip. If you're looking for a space in New York and you want to skip out on a realtor fee, if you take over the lease of somebody else, you don't have to do that. And that's a really popular thing happening. So, and it's coming up on the list all the time, like sublet for 3 months and take over the lease. So we'll start a new section for that.
It sounds like you have a strategy to not be on social media. What's the reasoning behind that?
Good question. Right now, we're not on social media. I have to say it that way because maybe eventually we will. We're going to start a blog, and the blog will be on Medium. So Scott tells me that's social media, but for me, it's a more controlled social media. Listings Project started in 2003. So when did Facebook start? Like, were we on Facebook in 2003? Like, it began when we weren't using social media. And in some ways, Listings Project is social media. We're talking about ourselves. We're being intimate. We're sharing what we're looking for. And there's a trust in that. Because it's so highly vetted, because it's email, it feels intimate. People feel like, oh, I have this special thing. And it is really special, even though anyone can get on it. So we haven't totally had a need. If we want to grow huge and big, maybe we would do it, but will it still work huge and big? It feels huge and big for me.
There's also whether or not you're posting your listings on social media versus just having a presence on social media. The difference between posting all your listings on social media versus just having presence, like having a Facebook page or something.
Did you hear that? I don't know if the mic worked. Having a presence on social media just with a Facebook page or having listings. Yeah, we've thought about it. We talk about it every quarter probably. Facebook is fascinating. All of the systems are fascinating. Just how are we going to use them? And I think what's so cool about Listings Project, because it's been around for so long and it's structured this way, we really get to pick and choose. All of our revenue is generated through listings project. I've taken out a bank loan, but I haven't taken any other money. And I'm not against it, but it needs to really follow our vision. So it's the same with the social media. And that's why I'm excited about a blog on Medium.
So I'm just curious about, you've built this community. Have you tried to take it offline in any way? Or if somebody comes to you and goes, hi, I'm GE, I'd love to like blah, blah, blah with your group. I mean, what are the other ways that you can not just monetize, but also sort of bring value to this group that's been very loyal and is now paying you for this service?
Good question. We've thought a lot about that. We've asked people a lot about that. People are on my list because they're looking for a home. You know, they'll find people like in this last one, but that's almost a special treat. So I always have to remember, what are we doing? We're helping people find homes. So when we've had focus groups, people have shown up, and we've suggested events, but we have not done them yet. People haven't really showed an interest. Oh, you know, have a dating site and all that, but like there are dating sites, you know, so people see that I'm making these connections. What it comes down to, they want a home or they want a studio. So I'm not against it, but there hasn't been a calling. If GE reach out, I mean, if any people have reached out to partner, and we have partnered, if it makes sense. I mean, I'm here. This is part of a partnership. And it's, again, really cool. I get to pick and choose. And I hope we all feel that way, even if we're taking money from venture. Or you can come up and stand with me.
What was the turning point? What was the turning point when you realized you were not just an email, you were a tech company, and like what is the tech that is now a part of your company?
Well, that's a good question. I also recently got an article that was like, there's no such thing as a tech company. We're all just, you know, we're all so different. But I like saying I run a tech company because as an artist, it's like a cool, you know, medium. The point was very recently where I knew I was running an art project that made me money to tech company. The realization was when I had all these guns for hire and they kept quitting, and it sucked. And I can't do anything. I can't do any tech without someone, a CTO. And so it was the realization I needed to hire someone full time. And what does that mean? And that's when I started meeting with everybody, and they, you know, started talking to me like, you're running, this is bigger, this is bigger. And so I think when I hired you, Scott, that's when I realized, like, okay, this is a tech company. What does it mean? I mean, I work more on it, and I'm here, and I'm doing more things like this. But when I think about it as a company, I think about it more as this incredible platform to help us live our lives in a way that we want to live. For the listeners to find their home and be safe and comfortable, and then again for all of us who are working there to have the life that we want to live. Work from home. You know, our kid's sick, we're not there. Our kid's sick, they're on Skype with us, or something like that.
Thank you so much, Stephanie.
You're welcome.
And you will actually stay on stage with us